Hello and welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Alliance. Of course, I am your host, Clay, and with me tonight on a late stream is Katie. Yes, we are recording a little bit later than usual, so I do apologize for anybody who has missed this uh, live, thinking that we were going to be going live at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, our usual time. Katie is out of town. And
Yeah.
so we had to go a little bit later so that way she could spend some quality time with family.
Yes. Here at my parents' house, we played a game of spades. We played some Clue. It is now past their bedtime. Um, so now I'm here. Yay.
All
And
right.
we get
Well,
to talk about the finale, The Last Command.
we do get to talk about the last of the Thrawn trilogy, Last Command. I will be completely honest with you. Um, because I was in a bit of a rush to finish, it was a little bit harder to follow. It's chaos. That last book, so much happens from like the moment you open the book. It kind of feels like you just kind of jump into the book. It doesn't really have any type of opening, but we'll get there when we get there. We have a couple news topics to start off with before we jump into the review, but I don't see this episode of Star Wars Alliance being too long for you guys. So Katie, where do you want to start off as far as the news? We just talked over our little bullet points before we started recording. Where do you think you want to start?
So I saw something that popped up over the weekend. And it was mainly led off with a specific rumor that Keanu Reeves would be cameoing
Oh
in The
gosh,
Acolyte.
yes, yes,
Now, the main bit of news here is that The Acolyte has spent $50 million in pre-production, which isn't necessarily the entirety of the budget. Um, we know Secret Invasion spent 212 million. Uh, so it's not like they went less than potential, but that is like the budget we're looking at currently. And the Keanu Reeves thing, I don't think that's happening, y'all. I hate to burst the bubble, but that was sourced from Giant Freaking Robot, which is not a reliable source. And I don't know why Forbes, of all people, said, yeah, let's source Giant Freaking Robot. I
I
think you would think in the name, it's not
n-
reliable.
did they actually source them though?
So no, but you look at places like Variety, Deadline, Hollywood Reporter, none of them really source anything besides each other. And Forbes is in that same vein. Now, obviously, Forbes is business oriented. So
Yes.
maybe they're not as much in the know. Forbes, I wouldn't say Forbes is a reliable source for like entertainment casting and everything. Didn't get a lot of people's hopes up because they saw Forbes and they know Forbes is like syndicated publication, reliable in terms of numbers. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, cool. Um, but everybody else, the smaller news sources that ran the article, sourced Giant Freaking Robot. So that's where I'm getting the source from.
Yeah, and we had a very small discussion about this in our GOA chat just because you kind of just laid it out on us. We were like, what in the world is this? And it reminded me of like so many rumors way back in the day. And even Travis Snell had reminded me that a lot of people fan cast Keanu Reeves as Darth Revan.
Yep.
Uh, don't know why, to be completely honest, but they do. Um, and I'm not
Because you
entirely.
never see Revan's face,
You never
right?
see Revan's face, but also like when you think about Keanu Reeves' acting capabilities, especially just recently with John Wick, people are counting the amount of words he is speaking in each of those movies, and it gets less and less with each movie. And I think for Darth Revan in I mean, he has his own book, but when I have seen him, which is mostly in the referenced in the Darth Bane trilogy,
Mhm.
um, he's only a hollow, and he kind of talks a lot. So I'm not entirely sure if I want a Keanu Reeves as my Darth Revan. Um, but I we've talked about this before, which I actually would want to know Snell's perspective of this because it always goes back to the idea: are you too famous for Star Wars? Um, and I don't know. With the popularity of John Wick, just think I cannot see Keanu Reeves's face if he's in Star Wars. That's just me. Like, I'm okay
I
with if he's a another species, behind a mask. I don't even think his voice and his speech pattern would be great for a droid. So I don't think he could even play a droid.
Well, you say that, but then like he played the Canadian superhero in Toy Story 4, right?
Oh, see, I've never seen Toy Story 4. For me, it stops at 3. Like 3 is canonically the ending of Toy Story.
That's fair. That's a fair point. Um, no, I think for me, I think Revan would be a good cast, but I think where he would thrive is
Hmm.
Bane.
Ooh.
Because Bane is a man of very little words. He will take it out on you if you don't understand what he's saying. You have to read his mind. And I
Okay,
feel like that is Keanu in John Wick
he
form.
I will agree that like he is a man of little words, but I feel like there's so much passion in what would be that performance for Bane. Um this is an out of nowhere pick. Michael Fassbender? What's right? Is
Yeah.
that it? Yeah, as
Okay.
Darth Bane. Like I think of Magneto in the First Class movies and X-Men movies, and I think that portrayal,
Ooh.
but Darth Bane, and I think
But
that is perfect.
I don't know how he would do bald though. Michael Fassbender's like look is all down to his hair. Whereas Keanu, I think Keanu can get away without it because of the passion in his performance. So, like, for me, I think Fassbender, yes, could totally be a good band, but I can't see the look specifically because of the hair. Is that
Uh,
nitpicky? I don't know.
I don't think so. I think that you really have to because it's also the idea of like how well does the person look in the role. Uh, and I think a lot
Yeah.
of people, it does get down to the nitty gritty of people and be like, oh, they don't canonically look this way in the comics or in the movies or blah blah blah. And I think that's kind of dumb. But uh, either way, I think either one of them can pull off Bane. I don't know.
Ooh.
I still don't know if Keanu could pull off Revan. That's just me.
Okay. I just had a thought. Because the other thing with Bane too, according to the comics and like some of the um art that was done when the trilogy was accomplished, Bane is thick. He's very muscular. He prides himself on that. He also wears this thick armor that has the poison in it.
Yeah,
I can't remember the name of them. Um, the guy who plays Drax, and I can't think of his name for the life of me.
Batista.
Batista.
Ooh,
Batista has put on some great performances and shown a wide variety of options. And obviously, Drax, man of very little words, but obviously he's humor focused.
yes, but if you've seen like Knock at the Cabin,
Yep.
um, you know that he can speak very little, but also be. I think he puts a lot of passion in his
Yeah.
performances. Um, I would agree with that one. I would.
I have not seen Knock at the Cabin, but like I heard exactly what you said, so that was where I was like, that's who's got to be paying.
I could see that one. I could see that one. But moving on to some other news topics, we know that let's go to uh the you shared this in our Star Wars Alliance chat, the Lego Mandalorian special.
Oh, yes.
Uh do we know exactly when it is dropping though?
I did not see anything in particular for it just said later this year.
Yeah, it does
With
say
it
later
being
this year. Yeah.
a Halloween special, probably thinking like I think the last Halloween special was like early October. This one was announced a little late, so I would be thinking like mid October, early November. I feel like.
I could see that. Um the last special was the summer special, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Correct? Yeah. So and then they had the Christmas well, they had the Christmas, then the Halloween, then the
I think
summer.
the Christmas one was first, and then it was the Poe stories on Mustafar. Then it
Yeah,
was
that's right.
Beach.
Yeah,
Then
yeah,
it was
yeah.
this one, Mandoween.
Mandoween. I don't know how they come up with these names. It's hilarious. Um, but we have spoken about each and every Lego Star Wars special. So of course we will be talking about this one if and when it does drop this year. I expect due to the lack of content in the future, they will definitely be putting this out there as soon as possible to hold people over.
Yep.
Um, but which reminds us, hey, CEOs of giant studios, pay your writers and actors. Yeah,
Yes, especially Lucasfilm, because this is what this podcast is aimed for. Um, and like
exactly.
we said last week, y'all, we're still going to be covering everything, but we will have the disclaimer at the front of each episode, particularly when we're covering um, Ahsoka. But like SAG after also said, like if you're covering previous work, like could also be considered struck. I don't know if Rebels technically counts because it's animated, but
I I think more so I would assume what they mean is stuff that has like come out this year. Like is my idea of what would have been struck is the way I look at it, but I'm not entirely sure what that entails. So I'm not entirely sure.
yeah. I'm sorry. If you just saw my face on the live stream, I grabbed a protein shake out of my mom's fridge downstairs because I typically do that for one of these podcasts. And typically I just go for the chocolate ones because that's what a lot of what they have. And I was like, this is a weird flavored chocolate one. Like it's not very chocolatey.
It's not
This
chocolate, is it?
this is cafe latte with I can't find the amount of caffeine on here, but it has caffeine in it. And I
Oh,
drank this.
yay.
I chugged this at 9 p.m. Let's be real.
That sounds like a very fun time for Katie. Yay.
Consider considering I don't do caffeine right now. I dropped caffeine 3 years ago.
Hopefully, I mean, the worst case scenario, and guys, I will be completely serious about this. Side note, um, hope you don't get sick. Because I know a lot of people who like have stopped doing caffeine and like sodas, and then like a year or so later, they
Mhm.
drink soda and they literally get sick from it.
No, I have it every now and then, especially with my migraines. Like sometimes I get desperate enough because like my migraines, like a typical cure is caffeine.
Yeah.
Um, so I will go for it occasionally. This has 100 milligrams of caffeine, and actually, fun fact, I had caffeine this morning because I've had a really bad migraine for the past couple of days. So say a prayer, please, people.
actually reminded me. I don't know why I got reminded of this in the middle of this conversation. Um, but we also got news of a hyperspace stories storyline
Yes.
that is coming to Dark Horse Comics. Star Wars Hyperforce Stories number 10 is actually going to be a Bad Batch story. And
Yeah.
this actually has Tech and Crosshair along with them, as we know currently, uh, pre season 3, post season 2, Tech is no longer with us and Crosshair is being taken captive. So this uh with the information that we have, Katie made the assumption, and I do believe this is a uh pretty safe assumption, that it is going to be pre Clone Wars, or possibly Clone Wars, um because I would say Clone Wars before Order 66, clearly, because that was
Yeah.
when Bad Batch started, as far as the story that we had been told. Um, we did have that backdoor pilot in season 7 of course, Clone Wars, but I think this story will be taking place before that. So,
I think so as well. Especially with the way that hyperspace stories has been going now. I think I haven't like read every single one of the Dark Horse um comics,
mhm.
but like I know like I think they're kind of alternating between like Rebellion and Attack the Clones, so it would make sense for this to be um pre Order 66.
Yeah. I think that is very cool. It does give us one extra story with Tech. Um,
Hmm.
and again, there wasn't a body, so we're not entirely sure. I still like the crazy out there theory that the spider thing from Mando season 3 was an abomination that was created out of Tech's body. Um, but with that, we do have an outlaw panel to talk about. I was unable to read up on this and watch this. I can't remember where this. I believe this was a part of San Diego Comic Con because, of
Yes.
course, other studios were not going to be at Comic Con, so video games got to take the limelight in Hall H. Uh, there was some other stuff in there as well, but for the most part, the bigger ones was this Outlaw panel as well as Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
And in this Outlaws panel, we did find out some information. Katie was talking about it before we started recording. It seems that we are going to be spending a lot of time in Jabba's palace. So, from what we had learned from the announcement video of this game, as well as the day after when it was kind of like a follow up and a little bit more about the game, was that your main character that you're going to be playing as is a thief, is not a basically a scoundrel. And I think a lot of people are going to quite possibly be like, oh, this is like the female version of Han Solo.
Yeah. Well, a
I
lot of people were mad that they're like, so Lucasfilm Games, are you gonna give us a male character to play instead of the female character? And I'm like, you had your male character in Jedi Survivor, in Fallen Order.
hold on, guys. With games out there like Horizon Zero Dawn, where it has an amazing female led like video game character, and we have Last of Us, where you get to play as Ellie. Yeah, people will, oh, well, you also get to play as Joel. No, Ellie is like one of the main characters of that story. So you have Last of Us, you have Horizon Zero Dawn. There are so many other games that Tomb Raider, like, come on, guys. It's okay to have female led characters. I like this. It gives us variety. And you're right. We had Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor, and now we have this. I think this is just fine, uh, because there's women and men, and a whole bunch of other sexualities within the Star Wars universe. So I think we'll be just fine.
Precisely. Precisely. Y'all can live. We get 1 in 5. Deal with it. Um, the other key bit is one of the crime syndicates that will be a part of the video game, and I can't remember because I only have one screen, so I get to see your pretty faces, or I get to see Clay's pretty face. Excuse me. Um, I can't remember what the name of the crime syndicate was, but it will be actually based on Kajimi, which will be interesting because Kajimi, we know, is where Poe got his start kind of as a pilot. Was it running spice? Yes, it was. But it's going to be kind of cool to see the origins of the planet build up. Do we know what time frame Star Wars Outlaws takes place in?
Yes, Star Wars Outlaw is between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Um,
Okay.
so the clan is actually the Ashiga clan,
Yes.
Ashiga clan.
Yeah. And so it'll be interesting. Are we gonna see Han Solo and Carbonite in Jabba's palace? Are we gonna see maybe Kira and Boba Fett kind of with the War of the Bounty Hunters? Is that gonna play into things? And then my
Ooh,
last
that would be
question,
fun.
yeah, my last question would be, do we get to see how Lando gets to be a guard in Jabba's palace?
See, I think that would be really, really fun, like near the tail end of the game, just because you have to canonically go along with what Star Wars
Yeah.
is. And we know for the most part that Star Wars says video games, novels, TV, and movies are all canonical.
Mhm.
If near the end of the game we see that Jabba has a new guard and we just recognize it as Lando, I think that would be cool. I think that would be a cool Easter egg.
Yeah, that could be interesting, but what if like one of the final missions is to get Lando into the palace? Like our smuggler has like got herself set up in the palace and is like part of the crew. Could that be a mission in play?
Ooh, I I'm not entirely sure. And the reason why. Now again, we know that during the time uh frame that we are in, from the original trilogy, from the time the rebellion started to the time the empire fell, quote unquote, um, that even in the books that we have been reading,
Yeah.
the Thrawn trilogy, we learned in the last book, Dark Force Rising, that there was smugglers that worked both sides, that
Yep.
worked with the rebellion and then worked with the empire. So it is possible that we have our main character, kind of get her way into the rebellion for some things. Of course, it's all for money. It's all for credits. That's what makes the galaxy go round in Star Wars. So I think that it could be a possibility that she finds her way with some rebellion connections, and then the rebellion calls on her to get
Yeah.
Lando in. I think that would be kind of cool.
Yeah. I'm very interested to see how that goes. I can't remember if I said this, but I think the last fun thing we found out from this panel is that the person in the trailer that everyone was like, "Oh, that could be Kyle Katarn," is not Kyle Katarn. They did confirm that at the panel. So just something to keep in mind.
Now, there is in the article on Star Wars Newsnet, there is a commenter that actually says the character looks more like Cobb Vanth, if anything. So,
If he's on Tatooine, that could line up. We could see
yeah,
Cobb Vanth come to Tatooine.
we could. Now, again, he does have a name. I can't remember what name they gave him in the trailer, but of course, people can have aliases. Um, I don't know if Cobb Vanth would be the kind of person to have an alias. But Well, no, because this is pre Return of the Jedi, so he wouldn't have the armor. That's right. He
Correct.
wouldn't have the armor, so that it would make sense for him to be wearing regular civilian clothing. Um, yeah, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yep. All right, so the last bit of news that we have, and this is going to be just quick, guys, because there wasn't a whole lot we got from the Lucasfilm Publishing panel. There
Yeah,
was one new announcement, and we kind of assumed this was coming because it was what they did for phase one. So George Mann had what was it? Tales of Enlightenment, which is a collection of the Star Wars Insider short stories. And this will also have one new story. But this is going to be released October 10th. And this was the item that they were saying was going to come, but was like TBD on the schedule or to be announced for October. So this is published by Titan. And yeah, that October 10th date. So that was really the only new thing that was announced. But we did kind of get more information about what each item will be. And then we also got some cover drops, which I was in love with the covers. The covers are amazing. Um,
I did like a lot of these. One thing that I do want to go ahead and also let out there, because there was a lot of confusion. And if you haven't seen on Twitter or Instagram or any type of social
oh,
media
yes.
with the help me with the
Tales of
name,
Light and Life.
Tales of Light and Life. As we had said in the last episode, the digital version, the ebook version, was said to be released on the 25th of this month, which
Yep.
was literally yesterday. Um, and yesterday, Katie texted me and said, "Hey, look at this screenshot. It says," or I think it was even the day before yesterday. So the 24th, you said, "Hey, look, the date has changed and it was
Yeah.
August 1st." Then yesterday, it was confirmed by Michael that the only early version of this book was at San Diego Comic Con, and it will not release until September 8th, I believe, is the date.
So it's September 5th, and this is from
5th.
Michael Seglain, who's the head creative director for Lucasfilm Publishing. So he's the head honcho for everything. Um, but he was like, not sure why it ever said today. The release date for all versions is September 5th. So you've got a couple more weeks to wait. And Michael, I love you and I love the work you're doing, but it is not a couple of weeks. The definition, or I guess it all depends on your definition of couple. My definition of couple is 3 to 4 weeks.
Well,
And
I assume a couple is two. A
oh yeah.
few is three or four,
Yeah. Okay, I got it
is
flipped.
my idea. So a couple of weeks, not really. September 5th is 2 months away. It, it,
Six
it's
weeks.
it's quite some time. Um, so it is a little disappointing that this has happened. There was a lot of confusion, but this is not the first time there has been a lot of confusion on Star Wars releases. We've had our hiccups with, I believe it was Disney publishing of the younger reader books.
Yep.
Uh,
We've had
that
a lot.
it's kind of crazy sometimes, but so just to let you guys know, we do have an actual date, and that is September 5th. And also just want to acknowledge in the chat, Andrew is in the chat. Thank you very much for stopping by. Don't worry, it's okay if you were late, at least you're here. So we were talking about these covers for the Star Wars comics.
Do you have them
uh
pulled up? Or the
i
books? Well, yeah, we
I
got covers for the comics too.
we did have covers for the books as well. I do not have those up actually.
All right.
And
Well, while you pull those up, I'm gonna kind of read through some of the things about what we have upcoming. So, Shadows of Starlight will feature vignettes about the Jedi Council, Elzar Mann, Marcion Rowe, and Bell and Buri Yaga. So that could be interesting, especially with the short story at play. So are they going to potentially translate that, especially with Charles writing both a short story about Bell and Buryaga, or is it kind of going to be like two separate stories?
um I think it hmm. And this is for the Tales of Light and Life, right?
This is for Shadows of Starlight, so the comic.
Oh, that's right. Um I think it might be two separate stories. What do you think?
I'm hopeful it's two separate stories. I don't want it to end up being a retelling.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think that's a bad way to go about it. All right, so you have the covers pulled up. So the one you have currently displaying is Escape from Vala, which is the middle grade novel written by Daniel Jose Older and Alyssa Wong. And we can see, oh my gosh, I can't remember his name. But it's one of the phase one Padawans with 3 new Padawans on the cover, and they're trying to get off Valo.
Yeah. Um is it oh
Ram
cuz he
Jamaram.
yes, Ram. Yeah. Uh I just want to say the
Mhm.
middle grade books, their covers pop so well with the color. It
Yeah.
looks so vibrant. I really dig this cover. Um I love just for the fact of course the High Republic is the height of what people call the height of the Jedi power. And just seeing the multiple different colors of lightsabers. Um
Yeah.
I I really appreciate that. Cuz I mean you always get the generic green and blue, green and blue, green and blue. You occasionally get the random uh Mace Windu cover with the purple, but it's always green, green, blue, green, blue, green, blue. I love that, we get the green, we get the blue, we get the purple, and we get the yellow. I love this.
Yeah. And I think like the middle grade book, it looks like the other covers that we've gotten.
Hmm.
Now this young adult book, um, which is written by I can't remember the names. Tessa Grattan and Justina Ireland, Defy the Storm. I love this cover. What do you think about this cover?
This is a very interesting cover. Of course, this is all of the Nihil surrounding our uh two heroes. Um, Now I believe, and Katie, you can correct me if I am wrong. Of course, this is a time jump from where we were in phase one to now phase three. I can't remember how much of a time jump though.
1 year.
1 year. Is this Vernestra?
Yes. So she is wearing the hair down. Um, like it looks so punk rock. That
I
is
love her new look. She looks a lot older, by the
yes.
way. She doesn't look just 1 year older. She looks a lot older.
Yeah, so
Um,
she's gonna be 17 or 18 at this point.
yeah, I love the vest. I love the entire look. I love this. She looks absolutely amazing. Um, and I just like you can point her out in a crowd. I love this. And I know that it's on purpose. They are washing all the other people in the background. But I just really dig this cover. Now, what does it mean?
Right.
That's
So
what I want to know.
you've got Avon Staros there on the right. Um and I don't know who's in the middle. That's the only thing that's been bugging me about this cover.
I don't know who that is.
Um It looks like that may be Jordana Sparkburn from the second young adult, according to
Yes.
Wikipedia. Now, my question is, where's Imri? Imri's not on this cover.
Did he get assigned a new master?
No, they wouldn't have done that.
Because again, I like they were the same age. Again, I don't think the council looks at Vernestra in any kind of negative light whatsoever. But maybe they thought, hey, you know, things have been working out well, but I think we finally found, because I mean, within the height of everything that was going on in phase one, I think it was only because of just circumstance that it was an easy assignment for her, for the council to just be like, hey, Vernestra, you're going to be training Emery.
Right, but I also feel like if they were going to do that, the time was to do it then, because especially because she felt the force guiding her to train Emery. And at this point for the Jedi Order, they're all about, hey, the force is guiding you to do this, go for it.
Okay. Um,
Maybe she relinquished him, but I don't think so. I gotta wonder. I gotta wonder where he is.
well, maybe. And it I could be reading into the cover way too much, but maybe she is behind enemy lines and she felt that Emery might have been, it may have just been, hey, I have to be on this assignment. Like, I will send you to another place with another Jedi and Padawan. This is your mission, this will be my mission.
That the biggest thing with that, right, is so if they're across enemy lines, they cannot use hyperspace. So it's going to take several months for them to get behind enemy lines. So my curiosity would be if Imri or she is already behind enemy lines and they're stuck on opposite sides
Hmm.
because of the subspace travel issue.
Yeah.
Because and this goes back to I think I talked about this kind of when we got the Eye of the Storm publication with the Corellian trilogy, how Corellia set up basically a hyperspace barrier.
Hmm.
And it took them almost a year to get through to Corellia, going regular subspace speeds. So,
Yeah. Very, very interesting. I love this cover. Cannot wait for this book to come out because I need to know more about it.
yep. So these next ones are the Cabin Scott Phase 3 Marvel comic, which will be about Kiev coming to terms with becoming a Jedi Master, mirroring her first issue coming to terms with becoming a Jedi Knight. And if you look, this cover, so that's Lorna D, Kiev, and then one of the twins on the front cover.
Hmm.
This mirrors the first and last issue cover of the Phase 1 comic, with Skeev, Kiev, and Avar
And
on the
Avar,
front.
yeah. Now, my thing is, what is Lorna D doing?
That's the big question. I'm so
Because the
curious.
last time, from what I remember, the last time we saw or heard anything from Lorna D was from her uh audio drama. The
Yeah.
uh oh, what was it?
No, she's in the last one. The Fallen Star, I
Oh, was
think.
she in the Fallen Star?
She's in one of the last 3 big books.
Okay.
Because she ends up taking like a Republic ship and it comes into play with Martian.
Oh,
but
that's right.
she's not a major player.
She took over that prison. That's right. That's right. She took over the Republic prison ship or whatever. Yeah, but I am very interested to see why she is teaming up. Or if it's just the fact that she is just highlighted on the cover, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, but good to see that she is back. But issue number 2 is
Yes, the
interesting.
Nameless. We get to see the Nameless on the cover, and I don't know who this. I'm assuming this is a Nihil on the cover with the Nameless.
Yeah.
Um, I'm very curious about this. Very curious indeed.
A lot of people were freaking out about this, just saying for the fact that like uh people are wondering who's behind the mask. People are very interested in this. um People were also saying something about like the color of the Nihil crest or whatever. I'm not entirely sure what they mean by that. They were talking about like the background and stuff. Um, don't know at all what that means. Whether it's that like red circle or whatever. But people are freaking out. But I am curious. I am very interested in this. Um, we left off in phase 2 learning that Yoda and Master, remind me, um 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 oh shoot, who was it? Well, the big thing is we learn that Yoda is finding out that there is something out there that is harming the Jedi in a very severe way.
Right.
That's,
So he goes off in the High Republic adventures with one of the elders from
yes.
what is the remnants of the path. So he goes off with that person and comes back at the end of Midnight Horizon with a mysterious someone who we're assuming is the purple guy. I can't remember his name, I'm sorry. Um from phase 2 Marvel comic.
Yes. Yes, that's who we are assuming. Um, so we will see how everything plays out. Our biggest question is why has there not been a way to stop the Nameless? I think now, seeing especially in the last book of phase 2,
Mhm.
them making a point to have a conversation where they do say, oh, they can die.
Yep.
So like I think that it was very much put on purpose. We saw specifically how they can be controlled and stopped. And I'm gonna be very interested to see how exactly and what exactly did Yoda learn on his little adventure, and hoping that we get some real concrete like, hey, we're the good guys. We're gonna finally stop the bad things happening to us Jedi in
Mhm.
this phase. So very, very awesome. We also have the Shadows of Starlight. Here is issue 2. It has, of course, Elzar Mann with the, of course, fallen Starlight Beacon. Excuse me. This is just sad. I think it was Blue Milk Mama
Clay,
was.
did you freeze or was that just me?
I think it might have been just you.
Okay, we're
Uh,
good. I'm back.
um there I think it was Blue Milk Mama that uh on Twitter she had said um who or have you thought of Stellan uh Geos today? And I said, oh, I didn't know that I needed to cry today. um and this is what it just reminds me of. I see Starlight Beacon and just like Stellan is in that water, dead, just pummeled.
I didn't want to cry today either. I didn't think about that. Oh my gosh.
Yep. Stellan is just in, unless they retrieved his body, but I don't think so. Um, but yeah, Shadows of Starlight is going to be very very interesting. It says that it takes place within the first year after the fallen of Starlight
Yep.
Beacon. This is written by Charles Soule, uh, and the first issue releases in October.
Right. So the first issue is going to cover the vignette about the Jedi Council. And so this second issue that we've got the cover of is Elzar in front of the wreckage of Starlight Beacon. The proportions do look a little bit off, but it could all vary. It could all vary. So this is going to be the vignette about Elzar. And then there's the two other vignettes, one about Martian and then the other about Burry and Bell. So
Yes. And then we have our first look at the Phase 3 High Republic Adventures comic. This is going to be written by Daniel Jose Older, and the art is Harvey Talibo. I don't know how to
I
pronounce
don't
that.
know.
But
Sorry,
this
Harvey.
says uh, it says here Zine and Court are going to be the main characters of Adventures, and it says that this series will start back up in December.
Did you read the free comic book day issue?
I don't believe I did actually.
All right, well, I'm going to spoil it for you right here.
Okay.
I'm very interested to see how Zine is going to handle Lula's death. Lula Talisola
Mm-hmm.
died in the free comic book day issue. And I cried, and Matt was like, "What are you over there sobbing about?" And I'm like, "It's the free comic book day issue." No, I was heartbroken by that. Very devastated. So if you need a reason to cry, go read The Fallen Star. Go read issue 13 of the High Republic Adventures, phase 1, because that sucked.
That I just remembered who Lula was.
Yeah,
They
Zine's
were.
girlfriend.
I was just about to say they just started to like really let each other know how they felt about each other.
Lula
When
did
we
not become a Jedi Knight specifically because she was like, I don't know if I want to leave the Order so I could be with Zine. And then she dies anyways.
Wow, I will have to read that. That is crazy.
I was severely disappointed, if you couldn't
Wow.
tell.
But I believe, remind me, Zine does have some connection to the Force. She is Force
Right.
sensitive, correct?
Yes. She grew up in the remnants of the path, which prohibit using the Force. So she never really dived into that part of herself. So we see she has some new weaponry. It feels like she's kind of like she's bulked out. And like she looks much older from the High Republic Adventures.
She's let her hair grow out. It was a little
Yeah.
bit fluffy in the first phase. Now it's still very curly, but now it just looks a lot longer, a little bit more flowy. Really digging her look. She does look like she has really worked out those biceps.
Yeah. I am a little nervous to see how this one's going to go because the first two issues look so dark. Go ahead and scroll to the second issue cover. It looks very dark. And so I'm curious to see, because this is the all ages comic. It'll be interesting.
See, I think the first issue looks a lot darker than the second issue. The second issue looks just like a normal cover to me. It doesn't have any undertones of being super dark. Like the first cover, you have like this night, like dead night looking
Yeah.
background, ominous looking background. Here in the second issue, it looks like they're in some cityscape. So nothing too scary looking there. But it all depends. We'll see how it goes. Daniel Jose Older's stories, from what we know, um, do tend to be a little bit on the darker side. Um,
Yeah.
but with a hopefully happy ending to Phase 3, we can only hope that Adventures will have a happy ending.
Yep. So the rest of the news that kind of came out from the panel, E.K. Johnson says Crimson Climb covers about a year and a half, starting right after Kira is separated from Han and taking us up to the point where she is about to meet Maul for the first time. I'm kind of disappointed by this, because I was hoping to see more of her interaction with Maul. Like, to me, that kind of sucks to stop right there, especially with what we know out of the Charles Soule trilogy of comics
Mm-hmm.
about how Maul worked with her to collect like dark side objects, and maybe that was after Solo. Maybe that was after Solo. But it's like, I think there's a lot more detail there that they could hit.
Yeah.
I was gonna quickly cycle through these last four things.
Okay.
So Charles Soule says the Dark Droids comic event, which I believe starts next month, is basically like if our phones became self-aware and decided they hate us. The D Squad comic miniseries is described as the Droid Avengers. Writer Mark Guggenheim compares Chopper's appearance to Wolverine's foul-mouthed cameo in X-Men First Class.
See, I I already think that way of Chopper, but it's just because it's Guggenheim that I'm just like, eh, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get that. And then Cavan says Tales from the Death Star, which is the Dark Horse Halloween special that he's kind of been doing for the last couple of years, will feature stories taking place from A New Hope through the rise of Skywalker.
Which one was this?
Tales from the Death Star.
Yes, Tales of the Death Star. Looking forward to that one a lot. The what when is that one coming out again?
I believe that is supposed to be out November 2nd, I think.
November 2nd. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I am replying to Andrew here in the chat. He is asking a question in regards to The Last Command. We will be, he specifically asked if we will rank the books. We will rank them at the end of the
Yeah.
review. So,
And actually, a correction to the Tales from the Death Star release date. It is currently set to release September 26th.
oh, well, a lot sooner than we thought. Very
sure.
cool. Is there anything else publishing wise?
I don't think so. I think that's it. I know we said this was going to be shorter, and here we are finishing news at 53 minutes.
Sorry, I don't know if well, I guess I'm not sharing the screen anymore. There was an advertisement that just hit my ears very, very loudly. Don't know why. But if that is it, then let's go ahead and jump into this review. And I assume that it's gonna be hitting almost like last time. Katie very boldly listened to this book at 2.5 speed. I have only been able to get through this book once because I was in a little bit of a rush. I only hit it at about 1.5 to 1.7 speed. I did try at 2 point speed, and then it like hit like chapter 4 and I was like, what in the hell happened to the first 3 chapters? Hold up, rewind, go back 1.5 speed.
No, so I ran into a bit of a hiccup because I had more meetings than I was expecting today. So I had to hit the 2.5 speed to finish it. But the thing is I've read this book probably 12 to 15 times.
Jesus.
So hey, I've read the whole series that many times. Um, and like this is the second time I've read the series this year. So I really
Mhm.
only needed to hit the high points to kind of remember things.
Yeah.
I don't typically listen to things at 2.5 speed, people. I am a 1.5 speed girly. Oh my gosh, I'm never going to sleep tonight.
Oh, it's finally hitting you? You can feel it? Yeah?
It's hit me for the last 10 minutes and I'm like
Oh, that's awesome.
No, it's not.
All right, well, hit me with the questions. Let's talk about this book.
All right, so we got to talk about this up front. Thrawn. Does your perception of the Legends Thrawn change over the course of adding this book to it, especially with the ending?
Okay, so spoilers for how old of a book now? 20
Hang on,
plus
I can look this
years?
up. Yeah,
I I'm pretty sure it's 20 plus. Um this book was released in holy crap. No, no, no. 1993. This book is 30 years old. Holy shit. Um so spoilers for a 30-year-old book.
it is 2
Um
years older than me.
Thrawn went out like a bitch. Okay. Um, I'm sorry. Uh, I for me, the only way, like again, glad he died. Glad, like he needed to die. Um, and I hope he dies in Heir to the Empire when it comes out. But for me, I was sitting back and I was like, okay, I know that I hate him, but I want to be on the hype train that everybody else is on. I want to like this guy. So let me feel him out in this book. And hopefully by the end, I can really get there. And he goes out like that, a knife in the chest out of fucking nowhere. Are you
He
kidding?
okay, but you didn't see it coming.
No,
He
you
didn't see it
didn't.
coming.
You didn't. Like his freaking right hand just like runs up out of nowhere, like Thrawn, Thrawn. And he's like, "Oh shit, you're dead." Like, and Thrawn, this freaking asshole. He looks at his freaking commander. Right? No, I always get this wrong.
Captain.
Captain.
Captain Pelion.
Yes, he looks at Pelion, smirks, and I'm just like, no, you're not going to have the last laugh here. This is stupid. But again, at the same time, I'm glad he's dead. I'm glad he's dead. Like, there's a happy ending for me because my one of my worst nightmares was that like the heir to the empire, like I thought he would like no longer be the heir to the empire and like but he would still survive somehow, and then like later on in some other legends books he would pop up again and he would be a thorn in our group side. Like I would,
Spoiler alert, he does.
son of a bitch. Are you
The Hand of Thrawn duology.
He was cloned.
Very good. Very good.
Mother fucker. God damn it. Because that's the big thing here. The big thing in the big thing in this book is uh the talks. All the talks
Mhm.
of clones throughout this entire trilogy, and they finally play into effect. Now, of course, the only talk of clones is of Sabayoth. Like that's the big thing. That's the big elephant in the room that he doesn't even know is that he is a clone. And I love in this book. when they finally confront him about it and they're like, dude, you're a clone. And he's just like, you think I'm a clone? You're a clone. And he's just like, he is out of his freaking mind this entire book. Like,
Yep.
I don't know if it's like a sickness of being a clone or if it's just he is an old senile man that like
So
he's just crazy.
and this is the hint that kind of comes into play is Thrawn figures out that the Yasamari are, and I totally pronounced that wrong, y'all. The Yasamari are crucial to getting clone production faster. So at the end of Dark Force Rising, all of the people who come in to take off the Katana fleet are clones. And that's what Luke figures out at the end is he's like all these minds feel the same.
Yeah.
And so he figures out that they're clones. So that's what's manning the Empire's fleet at this point. So Thrawn has figured out how to get the production of clones down from having to do the year-long growth cycle to keep everybody sane by using the Yasamari.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's why like the whole mountain in this book, Thrawn says, "Oh, well the whole mountain is covered in Yasamari, so Sabayoth won't have any powers when he gets to Wayland."
Yeah.
And obviously like we find out he like manipulates his crew ahead of time, sets up bombs, kills all these samurai, and that's how we get like our final end stage battle and whatnot. But that's kind of how they cheated the system because Sabayoth was not done under the Yasamari. And we don't know how long his cloning cycle was, but with the fact that he was there for so long and the original Sabayoth, I think it was in the 10-year period of Anakin being a Padawan that he died. So at some point he was cloned there. So we don't know how long his growth cycle was, but also we know in canon, which obviously canon wasn't invented at this point, but in canon, Palpatine has a hard time getting clones to be force sensitive because they can turn out crazy, they can turn out without force powers, they can turn out mutilated. So I would assume it's something of the very same problem. Sabayoth is force sensitive, so he had problems, and we see that the Luke clone is also like mentally unstable.
Yes.
So
I love uh I love the way that Mara Jade got to have her cake and eat it too. This entire book reminded us that her original mission is to kill Luke Skywalker.
yeah.
And how convenient is it that there is a Luke Skywalker that they actually need to kill? To the point where she is fighting him, and the little devil on her shoulder that keeps whispering, "You will kill Luke Skywalker. You will kill Luke Skywalker." She's like, "Fine, I will." Bam, and kills the clone.
Yep.
Again, is a little cheesy. Yes, I think that the idea of like, especially with Timothy Zahn, like hitting us with like a dead horse, like the entire time with this, like, hey, you need to kill Luke Skywalker. You need to kill Luke Skywalker. And then, like I said, very conveniently, boom, there is a Luke Skywalker that you can kill. I like, I just don't know how I feel about it.
How
Was it a
else was
cool
she going to get
scene?
around it though?
No, like there's the idea of mind over matter, right? This idea of because we've seen plenty of people in comics, in other stories, turn away from the dark side. We've seen this before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what Timothy Zahn was trying to put out there was like this was a special case for Mara Jade that she couldn't just walk away from it because she was so close to Palpatine. So I guess this is the only way you could do it, right? Um,
Yeah, because and she was super close to Palpatine, but she was also brought up in the dark side. If you look at it with what we know from like the Bane trilogy, for instance,
mhm,
there has not been a specific youngling trained in the dark side since Bane
yeah,
when he picked up his Padawan, um, his apprentice. And so Palpatine doing it here, he picked her up when she was very young and brought her in and was like, okay, you're going to serve me, kind of
yeah,
thing. So she was completely brought up under programming and everything. So a lot of times, what we find is that, like, this is the route that deprogramming has to take. Like, you follow, you maliciously comply with the command. We
yeah.
see that a lot, even with like not within like action or sci-fi. Um, Malicious compliance kind of thing. So
True, true. See, what are some other story points for the
let's
last
continue with
command?
Mara. So what did you think? What did you think of kind of her whole thing? Because she goes, um, so she's in recovery on Coruscant, um, saves Leia, the twins, and Han, then gets accused of being a spy, and then heads off to Wayland, where she then works with Luke on some of her Jedi skills,
Mhm.
kills Luke, helps kill Sabayoth, and then ends up the representative of the smugglers to the New Republic.
I I like this progression. Again, I liked how they kind of didn't really share the information that she at one point
Mm-hmm.
did work for the emperor. Um,
Yeah.
you know, just something that I think that should be on a resume, or some sort of icebreaker, like, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
You know, force sensitive, used to work for the empire. You know, right hand to the emperor. You know, but I do like this because it helps with her. It helps with the idea that she is a very conflicted character. She is a literal roller coaster through this entire trilogy, not just this book. This book alone was its own roller coaster within itself for her.
Yeah.
But when you look at the entire trilogy, she is up and then she is down. She is up and then she is down. Because there are several times where, and they even talk about it in this book. Her and Leia have this conversation where, she reminds Leia, "I'm going to kill Luke Skywalker," and she's like, "Are you though?" Like,
And
like
especially with the fact that she ends up with the Skywalker blade at the end of the book. That's like a huge point.
yes,
She ends up with the Skywalker blade. What did you think about that?
I thought that was very interesting because we, before Force Awakens and everything else, we didn't know what happened to Luke Skywalker's lightsaber after his arm was chopped off. But we find out that with that severed arm and with that lightsaber, we got a new Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
Um, and so when that Skywalker is struck down, Luke takes his lightsaber back. It's his original father's lightsaber. It is Skywalker's lightsaber. Um, I think that is super cool. Especially when you look into the fact that later on in Legends, these two people end up together. Like, that lightsaber stays within the family,
Yep.
which I really do appreciate. But there comes a time, like I said in that conversation, where Leia says, "You've had ample time and
Mhm.
ample opportunity to kill my brother," and Tamara says, "Well, you know what? It's just convenient that he's alive right now." Like, that's basically it. Like, there are just moments where I need him alive so he can help me do things. But trust me, I will eventually kill your brother. Um, but I do like that. I like that conversation. Um, I I did not think I was gonna like Mara as much throughout this trilogy. Now, I think I have always been a fan of Mara, just because for me personally, my introduction to Mara Jade was actually in a PlayStation fighting game, um, where Mara Jade was a playable character. Um, she was the first character to have a purple lightsaber before Mace Windu.
Yep.
So I thought she was a really cool individual. And so when uh when I knew we were going to be reading this trilogy, she like just because she's attached to the introduction of her is also attached to the introduction of Thrawn. I'm just like, hmm, like, do I really need do I need this character in my life? Um, but I have grown to like her. Because she was in the very beginning of the book a little bit of a whiny character. Like, I
Hmm.
will Luke Skywalker, you will rule the day, kind of character.
Yeah.
And she turned into somebody who has legitimate growth throughout this entire thing. Um, and honestly, when you look at all the characters in this trilogy, I think she is the only character with growth in this entire trilogy. Because you look at Leia, you look at Han, and you look at Luke Skywalker, they are just your normal everyday heroes in the Star Wars universe. Like, they don't really change as far as characters. You have that small moment with Luke Skywalker when he first is introduced to Sabayoth, and he gets that idea of like, hey, maybe you're not the master for me. You're not gonna teach me these things because you're a murderer, Um y- he has that, yeah, but I think that's just insight. That's not really character growth for him. That's just him being Luke Skywalker. Mara Jade is the only character in this entire trilogy that is that goes from a low point in her life and actually comes out on top. Um, when looking at everybody else. Um, by the way, that freaking I can't remember the guy's name. Um, but I remember the freaking voice that Mark Thompson uses for him. Um, the the guy with the Wraith friend. Um,
Farrier, Niles Farrier.
Niles Ferrier. That asshole. Like, again, you should have seen it coming because
Hmm.
he literally tells Lando and Luke, I've played for both sides. Like, he is known as somebody who has worked with the rebellion and worked with the Empire. And he was a freaking mole for Thrawn the entire time.
Hmm.
But also the what is it? The Delta,
Delta Source.
yes, Delta Source. I didn't say this in the last uh episode that we were talking about this. So you don't really have any evidence, but I did remember the episode of Rebels while I was reading the book, and they even said it in this book. Wait a minute. Delta Source. It can be a droid. And I was like, I freaking knew it. Like, I for a split second, I was like, it could, but I think that's like, and if that's how it all played out, and that's freaking Filoni playing homage to that in Rebels, I'm like, cool. That's pretty neat. But like, again, no proof that I actually thought about this before reading this book, but I had thought about it. Um, I know we're kind of jumping around, but I
So Delta Source was not a droid. It was a tree.
yeah, but I'm saying when they came up with that conversation,
Oh,
like
okay.
I had thought about it too. I was like,
Okay.
it could be, just because like the conversation even said like how could it be a droid? Like, and even in Rebels, like it was Sabine that said, does this look like somebody who would be, you know, somebody who
Yeah.
to hold all the secrets? So it was interesting. Um, what else was there? Oh yes, the uh he was introduced in Dark Force Rising. You said that he was going to have a much bigger role in this book. The one that talked that knew Han as a kid. Um.
Bella Bliss.
Yes, Bel Iblis. Um, I liked his role here. Him and Wedge almost butted heads a few times. You know, I I like his tactfulness when it comes to battle. Um, like really early on in the book, there's a moment where he's telling Wedge something, and Wedge is like, "No, I think I'll do this." He's like, "No, you're gonna do this because I gave you an order." And Wedge does it, and like he actually succeeds. And there's a moment where Wedge is like, "We're gonna win this fight," and then Iblis is like, "Okay, retreat." He's like, "Are you kidding me? We're winning!" And then he like turns his ship around, and he sees the absolute freaking chaos and all the ships that have died, and he's like, "Yeah, I think retreating is a good idea, actually."
Yeah.
Um, so I like Iblis in this book. There is also I'm sorry, I'm freaking losing all the names. Uh
You always do. It's fine.
it's it's the fact that I'm like, for one, you read the book so fast when it comes to Audible, you know, you put it at however time speed, and then again, consuming content every single day. But um our character from last book that was the thorn in Han Solo's side, um that I that you told me he was going to be like an important role in the future of Star
Oh,
Wars.
Borsk Phalia.
Phalia. I knew it started with an F. Phalia. This motherfucker doesn't talk for the entire freaking book. The entire freaking book. Like to the point where Zahn made it a point in at one point in the book where like everybody's talking and they turn to Phalia and Phalia's just staring at the table. Like he's not saying a damn thing.
He
Like
is
he is
completing his penance for charging Akbar with treason.
yeah, he is so ashamed of what happened in the last book, right? And he's just like, "Yep, I'm just gonna sit in my little corner, not talk, you know. I'll shut my mouth." And then when they're actually coming up with a game plan, like, "Hey, how the fuck do we do this?" And this motherfucker is like, "Well, why don't you just do this?" And everybody's just like everybody just turns their head. It's like, "Oh, look who finally decided to talk." Um, granted, he did put some good points out there, and you know, I understand the idea of like, hey, he's a smart mind in the military and politics, whatever. Still hate him, but I get it. You know, um, that was interesting. Um, because I was I was really wanting to know how Zahn was going to approach that. Um, I do think they kind of skipped over it. Like they just kind of like, you know, it happened, it happened. Let's move on. There's a greater battle to fight rather than amongst ourselves type of thing.
Mhm.
But like I still think that like you don't just gloss over that kind of thing. Like in my mind. Like that's just me personally on a personal level, not necessarily like having to do with canonically and everything else. It's just like, hey, you trying to accuse somebody of treason and then saying, "Hey, this entire fleet can just go f themselves because I want to live." Like that's grounds for freaking imprisonment and like you're a traitor to your
You'd
freaking
think at the least they would have like banished him from the council and like
for
you couldn't
real.
have a place in the government anymore. Yeah, no. I'm totally with you. And every time he shows up in a future Legends book, I'm like, why didn't you kick him out?
Like he may be a great mind and a great asset, but like he was wrong. Like he was wrong about Akbar, but he was wrong in his actions more so than anything else.
Yeah.
And you can't have somebody with that much power and him be able to make all those accusations,
Mhm.
literally basically tell like somebody to shoot Han Solo point blank
Yep.
just to cover his own ass. And him still be able to say, I get paid the big bucks. Like, ugh.
What did you think about Card getting the 70K out of him at the end?
70K for the
So Card is like he comes to Coruscant mainly to get Moira and Gint,
Mhm.
but also to get the credit line set up for the smuggler network that he's establishing.
Yes, yes, yes.
And so Leia tells him, Mara's not here, but I know where she is, and I need you to take me to her, because they're in trouble. Because she figures out that there's Yasamari, and she figures that Mara and Luke and the rest of the crew don't know. So
Yeah.
she's like, we gotta get to Wayland as soon as possible. Her Nogri bodyguard finds Phalia snooping around in the background, and Phalia's like, you have to take her. Like, it has to happen. Like, we've got to shut this cloning facility down, and you have to save them. And Card goes, yeah, but I got somewhere else to be. He's going to like go to the shipyards and stuff. And Leia's like, yeah, I'm not buying this. Like, you're here for Mara. Like, you're not gonna let Mara die.
Yeah.
And Card's like, no, like she knows what she's doing, kind of thing. And then he goes, but you know what? I'll go get him for 70K.
Yeah.
And Phalia's like, you're just a stupid piece of, but he pays the money. Um, and
Hey,
then
as the kids say these days, you got to chase that bag, I the thing is, so I think that oh shoot. Blanking on the name. I literally was about to say it and then it just
who are you thinking of?
uh the one who got the 70K.
Card.
Card. Um I don't know why I was thinking like King something. Card. Um Card, I said this in the last book. And I think I've really felt this way for basically the entire trilogy. Card is just like he is a better Lando.
Yeah.
Like he is might I say smarter Lando.
He's
Um
more risk averse.
yes.
Lando is like, oh yeah, there's risk, but you know what? There's big reward. I'm gonna go for it.
Yeah.
Card is like, I need to think about that. Where's my money?
Yeah. I really like Card. Um I don't know uh if we'll ever see a Card like character um in the future of Star Wars or in our comics within this time frame of uh did we ever talk about that, about the theory that we had about we did, we talked about what might happen at the end of this run of Star Wars, but um I I'm just saying this to say that Card is a badass. Absolutely love him. And I do believe 100% that he would literally tell Mara to shoot him, knowing that he trusts Mara 100% on whatever decision she makes.
Yep.
Um because like he like even in the was it in at the end of this one where uh oh no, that's right. She was having the conversation with Luke and she's like, "Well, you could just go with Card." And he's like,
Mhm.
"Yeah, but we want you." Um Card like and plus like Luke's probably thinking, "Yeah, he already got our money. Like he doesn't need no more. Like he can go get somebody else's money."
Well, his
Um
point is that Card's leading the organization, so he wants somebody who's not leading it, but like can still be a part of both worlds.
yeah. But yeah, Card is awesome. I've loved I like him and his crew. Um because I like that his crew questions him. Like they're
Mhm.
not just like waving hand and foot to Card. They have a mind of their own and they're like, "Why are you doing this?" He's like, "For one, we're getting money out of it. For two, I said so. And three, you're going to follow me either way." Like
Yep.
it's just it is what it is. Um so yeah, really dig Card.
Yep. I really like him. All right, we didn't really talk a whole lot about Han and Leia in this, and kind of gonna lump them in one because they kind of stick together most of this book. So, what did you think about them? What did you think about their first steps as parents?
So this I I liked the moment of her giving birth, how like she connected with them through the force and like
Mhm.
for a split second like she was seeing what they were seeing and
Yeah.
like as they were coming into this world she was like, "Ah, bright light, turn everything off. Like what's wrong with you guys?" She was connected on a deep level with these children and I thought that was very very cool. Um Han being a level-headed father, I think is probably the most surprising thing for me. Um, because you would think just because of the way Han is with everything, you would think that there would be some risk. Like of course he's a father. He's not going to just be like, "Hey kids, let's throw you into war." Um, because from what we have seen in every iteration of Han, he does have a very, 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 very soft spot for Leia and for her family. And I like the like he gets so passionate and he gets into an argument with Chewie and he's like, "Hey, like your life debt is with me. That means your life debt is with her, which means your life debt is with them. So if I
Yep.
say something, you he was a little bit of an asshole to Chewie. Like,
Yep.
and he was like, "Hey, like, like I'm not gonna go as far as to say like you're my slave, but like at that point in that argument, I was like, dude, calm down. Like Chewie's your
Yeah.
best friend here."
I do like the version of Chewie and Han's relationship in canon
Mhm.
more than I do here. And I get like, okay, the life debt's a cultural thing and like that's how it works kind of thing. But it definitely felt like very slavish at points in Legends. Um and especially like when I don't know if you'll ever read this book, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Um one of the first books, I think it's the first book actually, of the Yuzon Vong series, the New Jedi Order. Chewie and Anakin Solo are actually on a planet and the Yuzon Vong are attacking and they send the moon down onto the planet. They crash a moon into the planet.
Jesus.
And Anakin is down there and Chewie throws him out of the way and that's how Chewie dies in Legends. Is a moon lands on him.
Come again?
Chewie dies because a moon lands on it. Literally, the Yuzon Vong destroy the orbit between the planet and the moon is coming down. And I think like they had like a ship, and Chewie basically throws Anakin Solo into the ship and said, "Go, go, go!" And like they have to take off without him, and the moon lands on Chewie. And like they describe Chewie's ending scene as him sitting there roaring at the moon. Like, there's anything he can do about it. But it's, like,
I I'm
that is how
speechless.
Chewie dies. That's how
I don't
Chewie dies.
see. I picture two ways Chewie dies. This is just me. Either go out guns blazing because Chewie's a badass, or Chewie dies of old age. Like
Yeah.
those are the only two ways Chewie dies. Like that's just me. Like ah, that's a new one. Like hey, uh, how do you even tell that to Han? Like hey Han, we made it back.
Well, Han went into a deep depression. There's literally 2 books in Legends dedicated to him just flying off and basically trying to find a new first mate.
Oof, oof. Like how do you even go about that conversation? Hey, so they threw a moon at us, and Chewie thought he could catch it. Like, like all jokes aside, that is horrible to have Chewie squashed by a moon. Like to a point where you're telling somebody, "Hey, get in the ship." Dude, you're right there. Why don't
Yep.
you just get in the ship with them? What made it to where you couldn't get on the ship? That that, that doesn't make any sense to me. That's insane.
Oh, okay. So Chewie, Han, and Anakin Solo were sent by Lando to pick up a shipment on Cernpindal. And they find out that the moon is headed on a collision course and will hit very quickly.
Oh, so
Chewie,
Han was there. Okay.
yeah, so Han was actually there. It's been a while since I've read this one. So Anakin actually has to make the decision to leave uh Chewie behind because he was piloting and so Chewie brings Anakin to the safety on the Falcon and a blast of wind knocks Chewie out of reach. Han is trying to get to Chewie to lift him up while Anakin is piloting, but Anakin realizes that the moon is going to collide faster than he expected. And so he has to go away as Han is watching Chewie die. And literally, the Wookiee stood in the moon's trajectory, howling defiantly, and was crushed to death with the people who could not escape.
That's almost just as bad as Thrawn's death. Like, that's super depressing. Like a gust of wind. Chewie, this 8 foot tall husky Wookiee gets blown away by a gust of wind.
Well, and you think the moon is coming down, right? So, like, the air is like going all over the place.
And, like gravity, like I'm sure the entire planet is like
Mhm.
going. It's super chaotic. I can understand that, but like I can understand the child getting thrown into the wind, and Chewie decides, "Hey, I'm gonna save your child, Han," and then throws him onto the Falcon, and then Chewie's left behind. That would make more sense. But to say, "Oh, a gust of wind threw Chewie off the Falcon," like that doesn't make any sense to me.
That's just off of the Wikipedia page. There was more detail to it, but
That is wild. That is wild. Um, wow. Okay. But back to the relationship, because we didn't really talk about Leia. Um, Leia here, uh, Andrew, thank you so much for coming on by. I know this was probably a little bit longer than we had probably both expected. I didn't think we expected to talk about news for almost an hour. Um, but Leia, she did and did not have a lot to do in this book. I think that she was a lot of the exposition dump. She was kind of the transitioning between scenes of this book. She was really
Yeah.
there to get from Luke to Mara to the council. Like she was everywhere. Like she was the one kind, I guess she was kind of like us. She was the audience and she was the one getting all the information.
Yeah.
Um and like I am very surprised that with how like strong of a story point it was in Dark Force Rising, that her and the Nogri were kind of like it was not really a big talking point in this book.
Yeah. Luke has the moment where he goes to the planet to kind of see everything and see how they're doing. And the Nogri at the end of this transition to Wayland as like their new home planet.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, yeah, like we get kind of the Nogri set themselves up as Leia's bodyguard. Um, and kind of that's where we're left off. The Nogri do go with Lando, Han, Mara, and Luke to Wayland as kind of an additional team. But yeah, the Nogri are kind of left out of the story.
Yeah.
At least the
Um
Nogri gets to kill Thrawn.
Yeah, like I think that is poetic justice for sure. For the fact of, what he did specifically to their planet.
Mm-hmm.
Um I think it is poetic justice for them to be the ones to kill Thrawn, but I just like for me they made it such a talking point in Dark Force Rising. Like, hey, we're seeing your planet, we're seeing how much it's destroyed, we're learning about this past relationship you had with Vader and
Oh,
how that is like going to connect you to Luke and Leia now. Like I thought it was going to play a little bit more into this book and it really didn't. It was more along the lines of like, hey, this is Mara's story, this is Luke's story, and we're just going to go from there. um so just a little surprising to me.
yeah,
Yeah.
I can understand that. Um, I can't remember if I've asked you this, but what did you think about Winter,
Winter was the
Leia's assistant?
yes. Um she cuz she was also the one that had like a secret past, right? She was the one that had like the code names and all of that.
Yeah, that was kind of her set up as like a rebel spy.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was cuz I can't remember who was it that kind of revealed
Mara.
Morrowed, right? Because
Yeah, at the very
uh
beginning, when Winter is escorting her to the room.
yeah, Mara like recognizes her and calls her that. Um yeah, I actually don't really remember all that about Winter. Just
So
basically that was really it that I caught on to. Um
so she's basically kind of like a double for Leia.
yeah.
A lot of people actually thought that Winter was Leia growing up, especially in the Senate. It just
Huh.
except
Very
for the
convenient compared to her mother. So,
yes. Except for the white hair, obviously. But Winter has a photographic memory. And like come Dark Empire, she serves as kind of like the twins' pseudo mom. Because Luke actually decides that it's best for the children who are growing up with the Force to kind of spend time safe away from the dark side during their formative years. Um, and so they wouldn't get kidnapped, especially with Palpatine coming up. We talked about this last episode. Dark Empire, the comic, actually takes place after this trilogy,
yeah.
not between Dark Force Rising and Last Command. But especially with that, Luke decides, okay, the best thing for them is to kind of be safe and away from people until they're two, which then they can come um, join like Leia and Han again.
Yeah.
Um, so she kind of serves as the pseudo mom during that point. Um,
Very
so yeah.
interesting.
I think that's really about it. Is there anything in particular from this trilogy that you would like to see come to canon, whether it's a storyline point, whether it's a character?
Um, I thought about this. Um, with Heir to the Empire,
Mhm.
um, coming as a movie via Dave Filoni, I expect there to be nods, story plots to actually take place here, in order to fill a gap from, of course, Mando to Force Awakens. Um, now, I and we've had this discussion before. This whole idea of like, do they really need to be? Does Mark Hamill really need to be lifting this entire franchise on his shoulders with the whole idea of the AI and all of that, and them using his face and all of that?
Yep.
I would really like to see a Luke Skywalker versus a Luke Skywalker.
You want to?
I really do, but I don't want it to be Mark Hamill. Like
Yeah.
I want a and it would destroy canonically how these characters fight in the progression of Star Wars canon, with how crazy the lightsaber stances were and fighting styles were in the prequel to how stiff they were uh, in the original trilogy to where they are now in the sequel trilogy. But like with Luke Skywalker basically like nearing his peak as a Jedi Master, or Jedi Knight, should I say? Um, I think that would be an epic fight. Um, but I think it would take away from a lot of what probably the story is to progress Star Wars as a universe to like the story point. Like it would literally just be for fan service. It would just be like,
Yeah.
hey, those who have read the book, here's this, have fun with it. Um, I doubt it'll happen, unfortunately for me and you. But Mara Jade, maybe.
Yeah.
It's there's this weird thing that I keep seeing online that's just like, oh yeah, George Lucas hates Mara Jade, like he never wants to see her in Star Wars, like all of this other stuff. But it's just like I literally said, she's the only character that has any type of development in this trilogy.
Hmm.
Like to not give her any type of recollection in this new canon where she is one of the strongest plot points in this entire trilogy and you're not going to use her in live action, like
Yeah.
that would just be a kick in the nuts to me. Like that's just the way I see it.
And like, so George Lucas, like, everybody says, oh, he didn't care for Mara Jade. He really didn't care for the expanded universe in general.
Yeah.
He just said, like, you know what? I don't have the time to dedicate to this like I want to. I don't have the story generation. I want people to be able to do what they want with it. So here you go. And kind of licensed out the books, the games, and the comic books. Um, and he basically said, the movies are my world, and then the other world is everything else.
Yeah.
And so, like, to him, Jedi didn't get married. And unfortunately, like in this case, Mara was created specifically as a foil to Luke Skywalker. Like being able to have somebody to play off of, because realistically, I mean, let's be real. Luke kind of lets Han walk all over him.
Yeah.
And Leia is like brother sister relationship. You're never going to get like a specific reaction out of Leia and Luke together. Like it's got to be somebody else, and so that's what Mara was created for. Now, with that being said, do I think you could still put Mara in without the Luke Skywalker relationship? 100%. I totally think you could. I think there's enough there as a character, especially with what came after an expanded universe, and then some of the novels that that Zahn wrote during like the Empire time, because there's two Empire's Hand novels.
Yeah.
So with those novels, I think there's enough where you could say she's an inquisitor and she can kind of be somebody in the Star Wars universe without being attached to Luke.
Yeah.
But also, and I keep saying this, y'all, there's plenty of time for Luke to go be in a relationship and go, this might not be so bad, but then realize it's a mistake. And that's where we get him later on with Ben and everything.
Yeah.
That's completely realistic. And obviously, we know the Luke Skywalker that we know in the sequel trilogy makes mistakes.
Yeah.
And so he might see, oh, you know what? Like, maybe I could do this. But then maybe Mara dies, XYZ. And he goes, being in a relationship was a mistake. I need to maintain the Jedi Order as it was, as I know it.
Yeah.
So,
I think that is 100% plausible. Um, and we will have to wait and see.
mhm.
Now, Andrew, I'm sure will listen to the rest of this, but he did ask in the very beginning of this podcast if we could rate these books, or how would I rank them, which one was my favorite. Um, I'm probably gonna have to say that two was my favorite. I
Okay.
think. Um, like I like each one for different reasons. I really dug in the Dark Force Rising. I like the Luke and Mara story. Um, I like how in the very beginning they um, the whole idea of Mara like learning again that she is getting this force sensitivity and everything else. And there is still this back and forth between her and Luke, right? Again, we talked about it earlier. She wants to kill him, but it's very convenient if he's alive. She needs help, blah, blah, blah. I really dug that in the second one. In the first book, I really liked uh, Han and Leia. I liked
Mhm.
their groundwork for the beginning of this trilogy, and how they jump into this adventure. And in this book, I I dig like just because it's like for me, I like the scary, crazy old man. Just like because I love the villainy of it. It's a very stereotypical thing in my mind. Um, but it's like it a crazy old man is unpredictable. Um, in my eyes. And so like the Sabaoth stuff, I loved all of that in this book. Um, like him denying that he is a clone, and like I'm just like, dude, it's all right there. Like it's all right there. Here's all the evidence. And he's just like, y'all are crazy. Um, I dug all of that. Again, like it was uh cheesy, but I like the Luke versus Luke. I the reveal of the clone Luke Skywalker, and learning that it's literally from the hand that he lost in Cloud City. Like I like all that. I think that is again convenient, but it's a part of the Star Wars universe that probably everybody had forgotten about at this time.
Yep.
And Zahn was just like, "Oh, I'll just use this small throwaway part of this one movie and make something really big out of it." Um and like for me guys, like there are so many sci-fi tropes that Star Wars could really dive into because of like getting into cloning and all of this stuff. Like I say this all the time. Like it's only a matter of time before like time travel is a really big player in Star Wars. Like it's like we talk about the
Between
world between
worlds.
worlds, and we assume via the trailer that it might play a part in Ahsoka. Like, for me, it's just like you just got to play with it. I know that, like, Snell has already said, like, the world between worlds is like the worst idea that they have ever come with, because it's like the ultimate MacGuffin. If they ever want to do anything or retcon anything in Star Wars, you just throw that in there and just like poof, it's all gone. Um, but for me, it's just like, get wacky with it. It's okay. Like, all these people that are just crying over, like, oh, it's not like this hashtag not my Star Wars. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, who cares? Like, your Star Wars is freaking 50 years old, whatever. Uh it's in 2023, you should expect time travel in Star Wars. It's just like, sorry. It's just
And
the way I think.
you know what? Just have fun with it. That's all that matters. Like, but like establish the precedent, and like world between worlds, there's precedent. So you know what? It is what it is.
Yeah.
Do I hope they don't use it to retcon things? Yes, absolutely, because then that's just feeding into the trolls. But you know what? It is what it is. No, y'all, this is one of my favorite Star Wars stories. Clearly, I mean, this is my second time reading it this year. Because I read through the whole trilogy beforehand. I don't know if you did or not before Dark Force Rising, but I reread Heir to the Empire. Um,
Well, back when I was a driver for my last job,
mhm,
I had before we had talked about um the Heir to the Empire, I had listened to it like 3 times. And
mhm.
then we were planning on talking about Dark Force Rising, but things got in the way, and schedules kind of went all haywire. I had listened to Dark Force Rising 3 times as well, but it's been a while since I had done that. So I was like, "Oh, let me just freshen up on this one." So I've read the first 2 books a total of 3 times each, and this is the first time that I read Last Command. So I think in due time, like, probably when Heir to the Empire is actually coming out, I might revisit the trilogy again, just to kind
Yeah.
of freshen up on some ideas, so that way when I see a clear Easter egg, I'm like, it's right there. But I think I've had my fill of Thrawn for now until Ahsoka.
I
Well,
getcha.
I mean, we still have Rebels, but you know,
Yeah. Because Thrawn's coming. We're talking Rebels season 3 last week, and I have not watched any of it. Um,
same,
but
same. I have to already watch, what is that, 20 something episodes in
22
7 days?
episodes.
Yeah.
Um, no. So for me, Heir to the Empire is probably going to be number one just because it's the classic. Um, like it is the name of the trilogy. Um, so for me, that one's there. The Last Command is actually probably my second favorite, even though I really like Dark Force Rising. I just love seeing Mara get to overcome the Emperor
Mhm.
because so I can't remember how it's pronounced in the audiobook, but like they added an extra U to the Luke clone. So like how Joru Sabayoth, he has two U's.
Yeah.
So in The Last Command, they add the two U's. So like technically they could like it really could have gone either way, and she could have gone, well, this isn't Luke Skywalker and stuff, but like she like manages to take control of her own destiny and kind of accepts it and goes, you know what, I'm my own person now. I'm not the emperor's slave, so I can do what I want. And that's kind of where she ends up at the end, and I love that. um Dark Force Rising, I do like seeing the relationship grow. But I think it like I get too lost in the details of the Katana fleet,
Yeah.
so that's where it ends up for me. So Clay, tell us where they can find you.
Of course, you can always find me at Fanboy Clay on Twitter, or I guess X now. Um, you can find me on Threads at Fanboy Clay 1010. And I've been told by 2 people, if they get an extra invite to Blue Sky, you'll eventually be able to find me on Blue Sky. But until then, Threads and Twitter are the places to be right now. Um, and then, of course, you can always listen to Ranger Alliance, which has a new episode coming out next week. Me and Jake have already started to plan when we will record this weekend. So be on the lookout for that. If you are a patron over at Geek Ultimate Alliance, of course, you also know that me and Jake have our Marvel Snap show. So go ahead and check that out as well. It is under the $5 tier to listen to that show. So go ahead and become a patron.
Yeah. And y'all, my Patreon shows will be coming out in August. July just got really chaotic. So you can find me on any social media platform. It's at Slice of Katie. If I'm not there, just let me know and I'll make something up. Um, doesn't mean I'll post anything there. That's the big thing. This show you can find on Twitter/X. It's at Star Wars Alliance with the A in the War is very important. Don't forget it. Remember, you can email us at the same username, Star Wars Alliance, no A in the Wars, at gmail.com for any questions, comments about the show. Remember, we'd love to hear from you guys. If you have a Legends book you want us to read next, if you have a canon book you want us to read next, just let us know. The schedule for books for the rest of the year. August, we have Tarkin, and from a certain point of view, Return of the Jedi. September, we have Tales of Light and Life. October, Crimson Climb, as well as we didn't do the Phase 1 Star Wars Insider Stories, but we can if y'all want us to. For Tales of Enlightenment. So October, Crimson Climb. November, Eye of Darkness, the first book in the High Republic, Phase 3. December, we don't currently have anything. But as always, if you want us to read something, just let us know. And we will put it into the schedule. My other show, Slice of Film, our last episode is next week as well. It's next Monday. We're going to be talking Barbenheimer. I did not get to record a special episode for Barbie because of some technical difficulties. So that is what you can expect. And then my focus will be on Star Wars Alliance. Very happy about that. So yeah, for now, I want to wish everyone a great day or night, whatever time of day you are listening or watching, and we will see you all next time. May the Force be with you.